Try to be quick because I realise it's coffee break after this. You may want to revitalise yourself. So a really quick disclaimer, despite the title, if you're a fan of German electronic music, there is no actual craft work in this presentation. I had to do it. But what we're going to be talking about is a really exciting project that the Thames Discovery is working on in partnership with CoLAS and some of the people who are involved in both Thames Discovery and CoLAS. So a quick introduction. If you don't know who Thames Discovery are, obviously Gus mentioned us at the beginning. We've been going for 11 years, so we're kind of, I suppose, the old man of kind of foreshore archaeology at the moment, because we've been going so long. We are a community-led archaeology project. We monitor and record the archaeology on the Thames Foreshore. So the kind of archaeology you can get on the tube train to go and look at. We are based at Mola, and we are supported by the City Bridge Trust and by Tideway. They have been really great supporters of the project, and we've also been helped by lots of other people who I can't mention them all, but including UCL. UCL was where the project had its first home, so it's great to be here talking about the project. So there are 4 members of staff on the TDP project, and we cover a patch that goes from Erith by the Dartford crossing right through to Richmond. So it's quite a big area to cover, and we wouldn't be able to do any of the work that we do without our volunteers, who are called FROGS. That stands for Foreshore Recording and Observation Group. Let's have a meeting. And we have a really great group of volunteers who work with us. Over the kind of 10, 11 years of the project, we've trained over 700 people, and some of them are here. So if you want to speak to a frog afterwards, I'm sure they'll make themselves known. You can find out from them what it's like. We have 4 active monitoring groups, so members of the frog who go to particular areas to monitor the archaeology when we as staff can't always get there. And we do 6 fieldwork sites per year. We sometimes visit the same sites on a quite regular basis, especially where there's a lot of erosion. But every now and then we throw in a curveball where we haven't been for a while or we've never been. So this is a group of our volunteers at Trinity Wharf, which is just east of the Isle of Dogs. Really interesting stuff there. And we run workshops and lectures to expand knowledge throughout the year. So what do we do? So frog training is kind of the main thing we do. These are some images from 2 frog training events recently. We teach our volunteers, a lot of whom have had no real experience in archaeology, how to record. So this is some of our volunteers from last year in the Museum of London Archaeology car park, learning how to offset plan. And then we also give our volunteers a kind of historical context around the river and the changing uses of the river and how the archaeology on the foreshore reflects that. So this is some volunteers doing a map progression exercise of the Cannon Street area and how there's been a massive change in that area of central London, especially around the river. And then we take them out to the foreshore. And this is what you want from when you take people out to do archaeology on the foreshore. Happy people who've just recorded a nice foreshore structure, foreshore feature. So these are 4 volunteers from our training 2 years ago at Rotherhithe, with a nice shard in the background. We have photos on our website which doesn't have the shard, so we're able to also trace the changing kind of cityscape of London through when we've been on the foreshore. What I'll do really quickly is take you through a few sites as well, so you get a sense of some of the sites we work on. So our field work, as I said, 6 sites a year. We're normally on site between 5 and 7 days. That does unfortunately include 7:30 starts. Elliot, who is our project officer, who's not here today, so I can say this, is quite keen and I don't know whether he does it to annoy us, but he quite regularly gives us 7:30 in the morning starts, which is fun when you're travelling to sites on public transport. We clean all of the features that we have, normally in the first 2 days, which seems quite counterproductive when the tide comes in twice during the day. But we clean all of the structures, and then we spend the rest of the time recording them. Occasionally we get some quite nice opportunities to do things like photogrammetry. Unfortunately, we can't use drones, because we're not allowed to, which is a bit annoying because there's been some fantastic results from it. But our fieldwork is generally informed and targeted through the work of our monitoring groups. So I know that this is another picture of Rotherhithe. I know one of our Rotherhithe monitoring group is here, and they're quite an active group in getting out and telling us what's there. So, without further ado, Rotherhithe. It's like a planned it. Rotherhithe's a really interesting site because it sits on a really interesting area of shipbreaking and building. It was originally an area of great shipbuilding, but then in the 19th century it becomes a centre for shipbreaking. So we've got some windlasses here and some keels, and this one always confuses Elliot. I'm not sure he quite knows what it is. But we've been able to identify named ships at Rotherhithe through Admiralty records. So there's a lot going on. The problem with a lot of London sites is they erode very quickly, so some of these bits have been lost since these photos were taken. So erosion is a constant struggle that we're having to deal with on the Thames. This next picture will perhaps illustrate that better. This is a site at Greenwich, just below the old Royal Naval College. We've got a jetty here, which is either associated with the Tudor Palace of Greenwich or the later construction of the Naval College. This photo here is from 2013. This one is from last year, and you can see the real change that there has been on this site. This is a site which is where the erosion is really worrying. We are losing a lot of timber. Every time we go down, it's different. So we're seeing a lot of erosion on this site, and you can see just from these two pictures how serious that is. And to kind of tally up with some of the Second World War archaeology that we've seen today, this is perhaps our muddiest site at Isleworth. It's my least favourite site because it's so muddy. I always get stuck. I lost a boot last year. This is a really interesting vessel. This is the remains of a motor launch 286, which was built in the First World War as a submarine chaser. They were built in America, shipped to Canada, and then shipped over to the UK. As a result, because they're built in America, the fittings were made by Tiffany of New York. So they're quite posh warships. This one served as, we believe, as a submarine chaser, and then became a houseboat on the River Thames, and was then, as the Aethon, taken and used during the Dunkirk evacuations. So this little boat has seen quite a remarkable service, and it is sadly now sitting in Isleworth 8, kind of slowly deteriorating. So we are going back this year, and we've been for the last 3 or 4 years actually trying to record as much of her as possible. So that's a really quick introduction to the Thames Discovery Programme. I'm now going to hand over to Angela, who's going to talk about a really exciting project which has both intrigue and opportunity in it. So I'll let her explain.
Okay, yes, so I'm Angela Bloomfield. I'm a volunteer at the Thames Discovery Programme, and I'm also a member of the City of London Archaeological Society. So this project, as Josh was saying, it really does bring together volunteers from both organisations, and the aim is really to think about the time when London has used the river a lot, and it really was the part of their everyday. So what we are doing is we are looking at a much smaller area than TDP. We're just looking between Vauxhall and Greenwich, and we started by listing and using maps all of the causeways, river stairs and ferry terminals that we could find between those two places that existed over the centuries. So we found about 200, and as you can see the dots here. Every red dot represents, in this very short area here, which goes between what is today Cannon Street Station on the left, and there the Tower of London. So this is a segment of our area. All those red dots were stairs. River stairs were so important to people that they would be using them to get a boat, they would be using them to go down and do their washing, they'd be using them on the ramps to take their horses down, they'd be really getting water out of the river. It really was part of their everyday Now, of course, if we fast forward to now, from 1616, there are only 3 stairs left. One here at Cannon Street, one over at Custom House, and one at the Tower of London. There's also another at the Tower of London, but it's very difficult to access. So that shows how much the usage of the river has changed over time. And what our group is trying to do is to understand all of those stories of how did people use the river stairs and the causeways and the ferry terminals. What did it mean to them, and why did it matter? And very importantly, why does it still matter today to us that these stairs are there? So this is, again, drilling down into an even smaller section of our area. This is Queenhithe, so this is near St Paul's. St Paul's is sort of up there. And this shows, this map is from 1676, and it really shows the ferries clustering round the stairs. So these would have been common stairs at the end of lanes, and people were very, very fierce about their access to these common stairs because they used them so much. So the little ferries would have come round and clustered at the stairs. Here you can see a lot of them actually going out and taking people to their journeys. So a lot of these would have gone straight across the river. Some would have gone up and down the river. Samuel Pepys used them a lot. He talks about them a lot in his diary, about all the journeys he made. He talks about watermen who were in fierce competition with each other, because of course this wasn't an orderly taxi rank where everyone took their turn. This was people competing for business. So he complains about the watermen. He talks about his journeys. He talks about how sometimes he couldn't get a boat because there would be something going on and all the boats would be taken, and he'd have to walk. He talks about walking a mile before he could get a boat. So it wasn't as easy as it looks here. He also talks about sometimes being left at a stair by a boat because the boat was going home. So it was a very interesting experience, and that's what we're trying to understand. So if you wanted to go further afield, there were these boats with a bit more protection, because of course you're going across the river in the rain, in the cold, but the longer ferries had a bit more protection. And of course, don't forget, they are also trying to navigate on this river between all of the commercial boats. So a lot of people are using it. This is a really, really, really busy river. So I just want to focus again, focusing down on 2 little areas. So this is Limehouse Hole, so this is in 1768. And what's interesting in this is, firstly, that you can see anyone doing a painting of the river at that time, it was very likely they would include people getting boat. So you can see the people here coming down the stairs, walking across the foreshore, and to get onto the boats that are waiting. This was quite a busy area. There were lime kilns here at Limehouse Hole, hence the name, from about 1335. There was building by the Navy of ships from about 1580, so it was a really busy foreshore. You can see they are actually seasoning the wood in the water here. You can see all these planks going out, and you can see them being cut here actually on the riverbank. So obviously these ladies in their dresses, they're not walking in the mud. They are walking on some sort of hard surface, and this was probably the hard surface that would have been there before the causeways. So it would have been a hard surface, then later on it would have been built into a causeway. Different causeways would have been replaced because they were frequently and very frequently used. Fast forward a bit, now we're at Swan Lane, which is in the city, again near Cannon Street Station. So here, what happened was new forms of transport coming in required new forms of infrastructure. So from about the 1820s, steam paddle boats made their appearance on the Thames. So they were such a new form of transport that a contemporary actually wrote that these boats had a smoke-conveying mast because they didn't know what a funnel was at that time. So you can see here 2 little wherries. They're still, the watermen are still finding work. They are here navigating among all of the steamers, which looks quite dangerous. And here you have the new forms of infrastructure. So you've got floating pontoons, you've got piers, you've got walkways going down. Now, just as for the watermen, they were in fierce competition in the previous centuries. Here, the steamboats are in fierce competition as well. There were many different companies, and you can see their walkways are so close together that they are, often it was said people got to the wrong boat. The stairs are still there. You can see a little stair down there. That's the stair at Southwark Bridge. So they are still being used. I'm going to fast forward again. We're back to Limehouse Hole. Look at how the foreshore has changed. There is really a huge economic and social transformation that is taking place. This was where the painting was taken earlier. It has completely changed. We now have a steamer pier, which was there from about 1843. But you can see the steamer pier, which actually was for trips to Dundee, is also being shared with the wherries. So they are still there, and they're still going back and forth across the river, but there has been a huge amount of change. So all of these piers and pontoons that I've showed you, there's nothing left today on the foreshore. We cannot find any trace. So if it wasn't for historical documents, we would have no idea that these things even existed or ever existed. What we do find are the causeways. So Hornstairs is where there was a short ferry across to Limehouse Hole, and at Deptford there was a short ferry across to Millwall. So this is what we actually go out and record. So we record them, we monitor the erosion because there's a lot of it, as Josh was saying, and we will go down and do measured surveys. So these causeways are absolutely fascinating because we can see the different phases, the erosion is showing us different phases. And at Hornstairs, we've even got a much earlier phase appearing, so a heart of handmade bricks and stones, which is probably what would have been there in the painting that you saw from 1768. So of course, it's all done with some really amazing volunteers. So we launched in June 2019, our volunteers have an online space. We're going out there quite regularly every month, even in the freezing cold. We've got some survey sheets and guides for them, and people can really take any area they like to research and research it, because it's really up to the volunteers to decide what they want to do and what interests them as a topic to look at. Map regression, place names, panoramas, paintings, literature, anything. So here are some photos of them out there. We measure, we check. There's a lot of intrigue with these stairs. Every time we go out there, we have more questions than we have answers, and some of them are here today. I'm sure they'd confirm. But what it does give us an opportunity to do is also to connect with other people who are also interested in the foreshore and doing amazing things. And before I finish, I'd just like to show you, and I hope it's going to work, this amazing 3D model by David Fletcher, who really does wonderful work going onto the foreshore and recording. He's helping us to record these things, and thank you. I hope he's watching. He said he was going to watch. So I hope you can see, this is really, really incredible. You can follow him on Twitter. This is a 52-metre long causeway. It's pretty incredible, and that is a pretty incredible 3D image. So there you are. That's it.